think we've gone live now.
We are live. Okay, hi. This is Dave Chapman here with Matt Jenner again. Sorry about the slight delay there. Technical hitch between the pair of us who are both logged in as the same user, trying to go live simultaneously. Welcome to the Digital Business Academy. This is week 3 of these on-air hangouts that we're prototyping to see whether they help in terms of explaining the content that we've gone through and trying to engage in discussion and dialogue about the program as we develop it. So what we've been doing in previous Hangouts is just spending a few minutes recapping the things we've been through this week, and then maybe taking a few comments from postings that have gone onto the site. So I thought I'd kick off just by saying a couple of things about where we were in the program and in the design of the program. When we put this together, this Size Up Your Idea, there was a lot of debate about how we'd structure it, and the idea was that for the first 3 weeks of the Size Up Your Idea, or the first 3 sessions of the Size Up Your Idea course, we do some work about introducing some of the frameworks that we think are useful for helping shape your ideas as you look to build out a business, or as you look to understand the structure and objectives of a business you may be seeking to join. So deliberately over the first 3 sessions, we've been focusing primarily on other people's ideas. We started off with looking at Ahmed and his idea Cellplex, and we used that as an example to work up a business model canvas, which we consider to be a very useful and practical tool. And this week we've looked beyond the business model canvas to things that shape the competitive environment in which we have to flourish, and introduced a framework that I personally really love from John Mullins at London Business School, called the New Business Road Test. Just by way of introduction, I'm going to just flash that up again and show you the relationship that I see between the New Business Road Test and the business model canvas. To some extent, the business model canvas deals with what Mullins refers to as the micro level of market and industry. It deals with our competitors, our customers, the micro market that we seek to penetrate, our target customer segments and the value propositions. And then it talks over on the left-hand side of the business model canvas about the micro industry, the sources of sustainable competitive advantage and how we will deliver our value proposition to the customers. There's some regret that John Mullins and Alex Osterwalder never seemed to get together to write a book which would have put these two things together. I think collectively the two pieces fit together, as I've indicated by these arrows. But Mullins goes on to look at the wider business environment within which we have to operate. This is what Alex Osterwalder referred to as the externalities, those external forces that impact and squeeze on our business model, the industry forces, the market forces, the key trends, and macroeconomic forces within which we have to operate. And so this week's session was looking at how we link a business model, a nascent business model, or business model we think is worth pursuing, how we position that in the competitive business environment. There's one more diagram that I'd like to show that actually seeks to put all this into context. Actually, there's 2 more diagrams, I lied. The first one is this, that if you like, we've worked through from an introduction, which is about the value positioning, the value proposition developed using a positioning template that you might use in an elevator pitch, to a business model canvas that articulates how we might create the capabilities, resources, the activities and resources to deliver that value proposition, and then to think about the business feasibility planning, thinking about the macro market and industry that impacts upon these business models. And all of these things are things that I think we need to get nailed down before we seek to go out generate revenues through scaling to get the revenue we need to scale by perhaps then writing a business plan. So for the moment, this hierarchy of value proposition, of developing a business model canvas, of perhaps stress testing your business model canvas and position it in the context of the wider business environment, are all things that I think we need to undertake before we move on to writing a business model and seeking external funds and resources to deliver to actually develop the product or service. The point is that in the design of this module, the first three courses, the first 3 weeks, the first 3 sessions were intended to give you those frameworks. In the subsequent parts of this course, we're really now moving over to generating and working on your ideas, trying to help you build out your idea rather than helping Ahmed develop the Cellplex business concept. So I think this has caused some discussion about, are we just teaching academic frameworks? No, we think that this is a useful way to introduce it, and now it's a question to move on to work on your ideas. I'm joined on the conversation by my colleague Tim Behrens this week, looking slightly less scary and slightly more glamorous in suit and tie. Tim and I have some discussions and debates at time about John Mullins's new business road test. Tim, without antagonizing John, anything you'd like to add about where you see its value and where you see its weaknesses? Not to put you on the spot, but you were slightly late. Turn your microphone on.
I don't object to being put on the spot, DC, as well, you know. I think that there is genuine value from all of the sort of 7 domains within John's model. The argument that I have with it actually is really the sort of slightly academic conversation you just referring to a second ago, and some of the things to do with it as a communication tool. If you think about it, it's really 2 different models. There's the sort of the quadrants part of it and the circle with 3 slices in it, and the thing that when I was first looking at this and came to it very good number of years ago now, is that you see the original diagram with these 7 domains in it and the circle on top of the quadrants, and you assume that these relate to one another, and that the internal parts of the circle and the square talk to each other, and that you should be discerning some meaning from this, and they don't. They don't in any really meaningful way, and I think it would be a lot simpler if they were there. There's nothing wrong with the content. I just think as a tool for communicating and a thing to learn from, there are simpler ways of perhaps producing it. On the other hand, his next book, which is called Getting to Plan B, I think is really good. It's one series of ideas, but it's the sort of thing that people in industry and in the venture capital community that I was working in at the time that he published the book use all the time, but hadn't ever really thought about it in quite such a structured way. And it puts forward a very good model for how you think about and describe new ideas, not only for what they are, but for what they aren't. So you can think about new ideas from the point of view of them being analogies of other things. They can be the opposite of something else that already exists, and it's a good way of thinking through that. But that's probably something that I've spoiled, because Dave was probably planning to come onto that at some later date.
Yeah, okay. So I think there's room for discussion on the Digital Business Academy forum about 7 domain new business road test, like, don't like, and that's a debate that will rage at least between Tim and myself for a foreseeable future. We were looking at some of your posts on the forums, and Matt drew attention to a couple of recent posts. I just want to pick up on one of them, and then Matt's going to help me navigate to the other. In the forum for this afternoon's discussion, there has been a post. I'm just going to put it up, give my opinion on it, and then ask Tim if he will share his views. You just have to bear with me slightly while I navigate to this new window, where the question really was the one posted here by by Nick about team building. And I think Nick has somewhat hit the nail on the head here about a lot of the discussion that's going on in the various forums across the Digital Business Academy is about trying to find like-minded people and trying to team with them and group with them. And Nick goes on to suggest that maybe we should actually develop a business model canvas and start taking the idea forward. And I do agree that this is an issue. I mean, we have the luxury here at UCL that to some extent we're bringing like-minded people together into a room where we're sitting them down and forming teams and ideas are emerging. And I've certainly found with my MSc in technology entrepreneurship that some of the most robust and successful companies that have come from that have come from a team that have come together during the the shared experience of studying together. There are quite a lot of websites around there that are looking for to help you find co-founders. And to be honest, I've never been terribly, we've never found great success with any of them. So the fact there's these sites out there, I think, illustrates definitely there's some opportunity there, so there's some appetite. But I'm not, I can't quite put my finger on why some or all of these don't really seem to be working in the way they expected. Tim, views, opinions, what do you think about this perennial problem of finding co-founders?
It's a perennial problem. There are no end of ways in which, look, ultimately it comes down to the same sort of solutions that you employ if you're trying to find a potential mate. You need to go out. You need to put yourself out about. You need to put yourself in places where you might bump into people. It's about creating contrived serendipity, so that there is some ability. You're not going to get anybody the opportunity to hit on anybody or anybody hitting on you if you're sitting at home as a wallflower. You need to go to the meetups and the work forums and the online communities. Ultimately, I think a huge amount of this is really done best face to face. Anybody you end up trying to start a business with is somebody you're going to spend a lot of time with, you're going to argue with, you're going to celebrate things with. You've got to be able to get on with them in all of those kind of different ways. You've got to be able to trust them. So they might be people you've worked with in the past and so on. I don't think there's a single place you go that is the only place you can go to find them, nor do I think it works particularly well if you rely on online activities. I once had a student in a program we were running about 18 months ago, who in a lecture theatre with 150 students in it, who were all sitting there learning about how to write a business plan, kept asking me where it was you would go to find co-founders. And when I said, well, you could look at this room full of people that you're filled with, and we support and we get you to talk to each other and we can share the details, and he said, yeah, but isn't there an app for that? And I was quite frustrated because the 149 other people in the room were probably a better place to start. They were available here. You could contact them. You could find out more about them and so on. And I think there needs to be a certain amount of confidence. And if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be able to go out, talk to people about yourself and your idea. And that starts with selling what you do to a potential co-founder and a team. There's no more of a secret sauce to this, I think, than just going and putting yourself about a bit.
Well, yeah, that may be the case. Call me old-fashioned, but and there's a stat now that 1 in 5 marriages, 1 in 5 people find their partners online, and indeed 3 in 5 gay relationships are formed online in the first instance. So maybe
these aren't mutually exclusive things.
Maybe there's a case for a Tinder for co-founders, or something. So I don't know. I think there are problems.
They're not mutually exclusive.
We're not going to argue in front of the internet audience over this, Tim. So Matt, you're also pointing out a couple of things about on the forum about some of the other very active chat rooms. Can you help me by navigate? Where were we looking?
Sure. There were, across the Size Up Your Idea course, we've seen a general growth of the use of the forums, which, as we were describing, it means that people are talking to one another, which is part of the benefit of being in an online environment. These guys can form their own discussion, talk about the things that interest them the most. With regards to ones to particularly look at, I haven't got anything because you caught me off guard, but I will say that Emma Sharp provided feedback perhaps on a previous question, and she asked, well, she commented that she'd be very fearful of pursuing a business with a value proposition that was not robust in a key way. And she noted from ideas to products, a company killer. And she says she's in the process of trying to do this. And she's only been able to clock an hour a day every 2 or 3 days. I feel like she's not spending enough time on this. Do you have any form of insight, maybe in her fear or the development of her value proposition?
Yeah, I personally, clearly I think in one of the video clips I'm talking about, you've got to really nail this value proposition down before you start executing it and trying to execute it at scale. And I think there is just a lot of time has to be spent in having meaningful conversations with potential customers to really understand whether your concept, your idea about the problem that you believe they have is really the case. So we introduced a framework for talking to customers in later segments of the course, and I think that gives some really useful tips and hints from that we've just simply stolen from a guy called Rob Fitzpatrick and have put out there with his permission about the best ways to have customer conversations to seek to test the key uncertainties that you have about your value proposition. And this is couched in a language that is perhaps a bit academic about setting and testing hypotheses, but essentially it's about going out and having structured conversations with your potential customers to try to get into their skin, to get into their shoes, and to understand the problems that they have. And I think you've got to spend time on doing that to make sure that your value proposition resonates truly with the customer before you put a lot of effort into developing a solution for a problem that may not exist. I'm not sure that's precisely on the point she's asking, but I think it does take time to have those conversations, and it is important to invest the time to do it. And there's often a bit of a lead time in doing it. It's something where those conversations, particularly if it's a B2B sell, need some time to set up. But essentially, you've got to get off of your computer, off of the business model canvas, and out to talk to users to really understand the problems that they have. Tim, anything to add?
Well, no, on this occasion, I agree completely with everything you've just said. But I'd probably add something to it as well, which is that you do need to be confident that you have a way of being able to talk about yourself and what you do in a public forum. And you're not going to get anywhere. A moment ago I was talking about being a wallflower and being able to get out there and help find people to co-found your business with. But online and in anywhere else and discussing this, you've got to have a way you can describe your business. You don't need to be able to give away the secret of how things happen necessarily, but what you're doing, why, who it's for, all of these are things you need to be able to do. Clearly, if you've got a magic recipe, an algorithm, a formula for the cure for cancer, then that's not something you have to share with anybody. But you need to be able to have something that says, if I could do this, these people, would these people be interested? And unless you can describe something of what it is that you do, you're not really going to be able to get away with that. So take some time over it, but craft a set of messages that allow you to communicate your idea.
Okay, I'm going to throw another one in there then. We've got pitching for partnership. Samar, sorry if I'm saying your name correctly. Samar Mustafa has put on this week's forum. Is pitching for non-funding partnership different from pitching to venture capitalists for funding?
Dave, your microphone's still on.
Still off. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is something we touched on last week as well. That there is a real difference in doing so. In both cases, you're selling yourself, and actually, being able to recruit a co-founder, I think, is one of the first, an important stage in validating your idea. If you can rally somebody to your cause, then that's a very good thing. It gives you additional resources, which is what you might be seeking from a funder, and it gives you some validation that you're not insane because somebody is joining you on the journey. However, other than that, your pitch is going to be different. A funder is looking for a radically different return from a co-founder. Both want a successful venture, but the funder is looking for something rather different in terms of financial return, whereas the co-founder may just be looking for a more meaningful life. So if you go to a funder and say, I'm just going to give you a more if you go to somebody looking for funds and say, I'm just going to give you a more meaningful life, they'll say, thank you very much, bye. Where's my return? Where's my exit? And so yes, it's a radically different pitch. I've got somebody who's just posted again into this week's forum. So Rifi has picked up that says, sorry, but I don't understand the four bases of the new business road test that we have. Please, could you explain a little bit more? The risk of antagonizing Tim, yes, of course, I'd love to. And if I can just pull up the diagram I showed at the beginning, then I think this is maybe just worth exploring again. So just very quickly for Rifi here, the new business road test, in which honestly I have no shares and I get no return on the book from recommending it on behalf of John Mullins, basically has, as Tim said, two separate models overlaps. The four quadrants of the micro and macro market and industry domains, and then this dial in the middle with the team domain, which as with Tim, I spent a good while when the book first came out trying to work out the rotation of this dial and did it mean anything before John Mullins said no, it doesn't. I just put it there because it looked neat. The underlying thing of the micro, macro, market and industry, the first thing John will ask us to stress is the difference between a market and an industry. We need to be clear that a market is really a bunch of customers, and the industry relates to a bunch of competitors, and so these are different. The micro and macro level, the micro really means those things that are within the control and or compass of our company. So things that we will find on our business model canvas are typically at the micro level. The macro level is the competitive environment in which all industries, all of such businesses need to compete and thrive. So the macro market might be, those political, economic, social, technological drivers of change that shape the market that we're in, that may make it more or less attractive in the long term. One thing we can be sure of is the world is going to be full of an aging population, an aging, greying population supported by current workforce. That's something that, if we have solutions for seniors, could be an attractive and growing market. The forces there are blowing, the winds there are blowing in our favour. In other sectors, the macro market may have these major drivers that are driving against us. If we're seeking to be a flexible manufacturer in an age of 3D printing, that may be something that's not in our favour. The macro industry is more, well, what's this environment like what's this competitive environment like? Is it dominated by a few major players that we may have trouble usurping? Is it something where the customers are really powerful and there are a few customers but many possible suppliers, and therefore we're going to have to compete hard to make our voice heard? So macro affects the competitive landscape as a whole. Micro are things that relate rather more to our particular our business itself, things we'll find on our own business model canvas. I think that explains it. That's an attempt at least. So
it's a better job than I would have done, DC, so I think you're good.
Because it's a good model, which I believe in. Matt, is there anything else you draw our attention to at the moment, or should we really just move on to things that are coming up in the next session?
I'm digging around, but there's a lot of discussion on the forums, but not so many questions. I think perhaps if anyone feels motivated, there's a lot of opportunity here to get your questions answered. So you should take advantage of that while the opportunity is still going strong. That's a message out to everyone at the Digital Business Academy who's on there learning. But there's been no more questions this week or anything else to highlight so far.
Okay, so let me just say something about the remaining 3 sessions in this Size Up Your Idea module, and a little bit about some of our plans for things we might be doing next, and opportunities you might take next. For the remaining 3 sessions, we're trying to turn things over to your ideas, and a lot of that is about processes of customer development and introducing some of the introductory notions about the lean startup and the ideas around how you rapidly accelerate your ideas to how you rapidly test your ideas to get this validation that this is something worth pursuing. One of the things I would make a shout out about is there's in digital business community, there's a growing set of kind of lean startup meetups that I think do present some of the opportunities for face-to-face engagement. These are things that you'll find a lot if you just Google startup or Google lean startup or look at the lean startup web pages that you'll find for the UK and indeed around the rest of the world. And there seems to be events happening here around the country on on almost nightly basis. So if you are having trouble reaching out to colleagues, or you want to reach out to others in the Digital Business Academy, then why don't you perhaps suggest let's go along to one of these startup meetups. I'm not quite sure how we identify who's who, but this is something where there would be a good opportunity to meet like-minded folk. In London, one of the venues for this is Silicon Drinkabouts, which happens most Fridays, run by a very interesting group called Three Beards, and their meetups are always hugely interesting in terms of the people you meet, and indeed the venues that you get to hang out at. So check it out on some of the bulletin boards and particularly meetup.com, and if you look for Lean Startup, then I think you'll find an interesting community of like-minded folk, and would encourage you to go there and hang out. But as I say, for the remaining 3 weeks, we're really moving over to try to think about your ideas. For those of you who think this is all a bit introductory for us, we know all this stuff and we're a bit further down the line. A big shout out to the guys at Founder Centric at Cambridge University for their sites that are also live, although we've taken the choice to put all the material out simultaneously rather than put it out in release it in a drip feed. And huge value in some of the activities there on building digital marketing campaign and so on. And all of these I think are probably more useful ones for you to do before you go on to the module 2 of ours, which is starting up how to start up your business. I think that you'll find great value in some of these very practical courses relating to ideas about the practicalities of actually setting up your venture. Before we came on air, Matt and I were talking about maybe reorganizing some of the forum setups here. One of the challenges we're having is keeping track of all of the posts into all of the different forums. We've given perhaps too many opportunities for interaction, so that's something that we're certainly going to be looking at as well over the Christmas period to try to look at how we can rationalize some of this stuff and make it even easier for you to navigate than it currently is. That's all I've got for this week. Tim, do you have any words of wisdom for parting before you go off to your Santa Claus performance at whatever you're going?
You're going to play Scrooge to my Santa. There's I think no, I mean, ultimately this isn't really perhaps about the opportunity at which we try and throw about pearls of wisdom that we haven't necessarily thought about before, because I think there's a huge amount of good stuff in the online material to take you through the process of how you start to think and plan your idea. Critically, though, you have to want to do it. You have to spend time doing it. You have to go and talk to people. You have to engage. There's this cliched phrase, which I think we've got through this so far without using very much, which is that entrepreneurship is a contact sport, and whether it's trying to find people to work with, potential customers, sneezing, all of these things are about going out and talking to people, learning, iterating, changing, writing a plan for your idea, writing a business model canvas. Completing these things are never one-time exercises. They've got to be about taking what it is you know so far, exposing it in some way to people who might know something about what's happening in whatever dimension that might be, and then thinking about how you're going to act on that and how you're going to incorporate things into it. And what we really can't probably stress enough, or I certainly can't, is the idea that taking these online courses is in itself enough. This has got to be a trigger to you going and doing things, and not an academic exercise, not an exercise for its own sake, but a framework in which you can actually learn things piece by piece, build them together, a sort of Airfix model kit or a set of plans for trying to have a go at doing this for yourself. It won't be that the same thing works for everybody all the time. It needs to be just a starting point for people taking their own ideas, applying some common sense and some of the tools and learning examples that we provided to think about their idea and begin to shape it for their own purposes. So get out there and do it. That's really all I've got to say. Particularly over a period like Christmas and New Year, where you might have a bit more time after a Christmas turkey, when you don't want to be arguing with the family anymore. You've got the opportunity to just go away and sit down and think about some of these things and shape up things so that in the new year you can take them out and start talking to potential customers, investors, partners, hires, whatever else it might be. Just an encouragement, really, just to go on and get on with it.
Okay, so I think that's all from us for now, and so signing off. See you soon.
Yeah, Happy Christmas and Happy New Year.